Okay, today we're going to look at reverse percentages, finding the original amount. And before we do some examples, I've got a little question for you here. It says £100 is increased by 10%, then decreased by 10%. How much do you have? Now, the intuitive obvious answer is you're back with £100, and that's what most people would think. But if you actually break it down into this two section, you'll see it doesn't quite work like that. So if you start with £100 and you add your 10%, 10% of 100 is of course £10, you have £110. Then if you decrease your new amount, you're going to do 110 take away, well, 10% of 110 is actually 11. So you do 110 take away 11, so you actually end up with £99. So when you increase by 10% and then decrease by 10%, you actually end up with a different amount which you started with. And that's important to remember here. So when you're working backwards, you don't necessarily just undo what you've done. So I've got three examples of reverse percentages. So I'm finding the original amount each time. And I'm going to use broadly the same method. So my first example, I spend 15% of my savings on food. This is £24. How much had I saved? So what we've got to realise here is that 15% is represented, £24 is represented by 15%. So if I want to find the original amount of my savings, that's 100%. We're always working back to 100%. A really good way of doing it is doing 24 divided by 15, that finds me 1%, and then multiply that by 100. Some of these will be calculator questions, some of them non-calculator questions. So this one, 24 divided by 15, then times by 100, must have started with £160. The second one, the price of a fridge is reduced by 12%. It's now £220. How much was it before? So if we've reduced it by 12%, this £220 is actually 88% of the original. Because I've always started with 100%, I've taken 12% off, so this 220 is 88%. So if I do 220 divide by 88, that will give me 1%, and then multiply it by 100 to find the original amount. So on my calculator, 220 divided by 88 and then times it by 100, I find out the original was £250. Example number 3, the population of a city has increased by 22%. It's now 140,788. What was the population before? So we're not going to reduce it by 22% because we want to find out what the original population was. So this number, this 140,788 people, is the equivalent of 122% of the original because it's increased by 22%. So if I take this 140,788, divide it by 122, once again that will find me 1%, and then multiply it up by 100 to find the 100%, the original amount. I can do that on my calculator. 140,788 divided by 122, multiply the result by 100, and I get 115,400. If I wanted to check any of these, I could now go and increase that by 22%, and I should come to this figure here. I could reduce this by 12%, and I'd come to this figure here, and that would be a good way of checking.